Good evening, I'm Ben. I'm not one to embellish anything. For me, the road is load, check, seal, drive, unload, sleep as much as possible. What I'm going to tell you happened one winter morning, on an interstate in the countryside, dry road, 24 degrees on my thermometer. I stopped at a 24-hour gas station, got a coffee and peanuts. The receipt said 2:14 a.m., 5:41. That was the last normal thing. I had planned to go 60 miles to a roadside motel I usually use, and that was it. No hero, no drama. About 10 minutes later, the first detail arrived. 3 clicks in the CB every time I passed a mile marker. It wasn't a single squeak. There were always 3, right where the sign was on my side. Okay, heading back. I kept my hand light on the steering wheel, headlights on low. The second thing happened in the same second. The dashboard fan would drop in RPM for about 2 to 3 seconds exactly when the clicks sounded. I changed gears on the selector, 1-2-1, and the drop continued in sync with the markers. The third variable rounded out the package, an antifreeze smell, sweet, sickly, initiating for 3 seconds at the same time. The dashboard was normal, no temperature warning. I wrote it down on my notepad. 227, 3 clicks plus fan drop plus smell. I started breaking down variables. I moved to the left lane. The trio happened the same way, only half a second later, according to my stopwatch, as if following the position of my set and not a fixed point on the track. I moved back to the right. The timing returned. I turned on the AM low. The station dropped by 0.4 seconds at the same time. 4 signals matched. I'm not a mystic, I like patterns. And patterns on the road become procedures. I looked for light. Wherever there was a sodium pole, exit, yard, motel, everything disappeared. CB silent, fan steady, no smell or drop in the AM. Outside the yellow halo, it returned. I followed a simple rule. Light weakens whatever it was. I swam from halo to halo. In the first darkest stretch, the part that kept me awake, knocks on the side of the trailer, 1 short, pause, 2 short, in the same second as the pops. No wind, steering wheel steady, road smooth. My door sensor, aftermarket, gave 2 short beeps. I checked the rear camera. Lock okay, zip tie intact. It was too standard to call a coincidence. I called 911. I spoke directly. It's not an accident, but I have a repeating pattern. Sound, fan, smell, synchronized every mile, with knocks on the trailer. I'm going to find a lighted area. I want to log the event. The operator asked me to remain calm, turn on my hazard lights, and not stop in the dark. She told me to report it when I entered continuous light. I kept the line open on speakerphone. At the next halo, everything reset. I cruised at 5 to 8 mph within the light for about 2 minutes, and then returned to the track. 5 seconds outside the halo, 3 clicks, fan drop, smell, knocks. The repetition was educational. Then came the second missing point for fear, corroboration. A guy on Channel 19 asked, "Anyone else getting 3 clicks per mile?" I said yes, and described the fan drop and smell. He said he was a mile or 2 behind and felt a slight pull to the right, about a ½ inch on the steering wheel, every time the sequence occurred. Okay, so it's not just me. I did 3 quick tests. High beam for a minute. It didn't change. It wasn't my beam. Ventilated cabin. I opened the window a finger. The smell became less strong, but the rest remained. Headlights off for 2 seconds. Bad idea. The knocks became louder, and the CB crackled loudly. I immediately turned them back on. I wrote down, 240, do not turn off headlights. I stopped under the light and descended only to the cabin. In the dust on the trailer's tarp, I saw 4 parallel tracks rising, as if long fingertips had touched, released, and touched again. I took a picture with my boot next to it for scale. I also noticed that the zip tie seal had a new, shallow scratch, unbroken. I took the picture. I returned to the cabin. The 911 operator asked me to stay put and said a patrol car was going to enter the interstate to light the side to a larger yard. The patrol car pulled over. The deputy lined up, turned on the spotlight, and said over the loudspeaker, "Don't stop. I'll keep the light on your trailer." And he did. While the beam remained on my side, nothing. No popping, no banging, no fan falling. When the beam moved to look further ahead, the cycle resumed. In my right rearview mirror, a ring of condensation appeared in the lower corner that disappeared when the beam hit it and returned when it didn't. I didn't need any more signal. The really scary part came right after. The metronome broke. At one marker, there was total silence. No pop, no drop, no smell. Okay, it's over. The next, the CB clicked 6 times. Ventilador dropped even more. And the steering wheel asked for a short correction to the right, the kind you can measure with your finger, about half an inch. The guy from Channel 19 confirmed, "I felt a bigger pull here too." That's when I realized it wasn't just interference, there was interaction. I remained glued to the patrol car's spotlight all the way to the yard. In the well-lit parking lot, I parked under 3 sodium lampposts. The deputy circled the side twice, filming the side. He asked me to stay in the booth, hands visible. Everything was standard. I went to the store and bought water just to timestamp it. 2:57 a.m., 1:09. I stapled the receipt to my notebook along with the one for the 2:14 coffee. Back home, I exported the dashcam clip. The audio captures the 3 clicks per mile and, at the break point, the 6 clicks together. I photographed the scratched zip tie again with more light. The deputy asked if I wanted to file a formal report. I replied that I just needed the report. He commented without pretense, "We had another similar call in this area earlier today." The 911 operator, still on the line, confirmed she would note it in the report. That for me was the validation I needed. After 15 minutes in the light, everything was back to normal. I filled up, ate some more peanuts, and tried to rest at the motel next door. I didn't sleep well. My right ear had a slight ringing until mid-afternoon, and my jacket smelled sweet even after the dashboard showed nothing. It only went away in the wash the next day. Okay, back. The practical part, for those who drive at night and don't want to talk ghosts. What attracts? Continuous darkness above the set, high shadow passing overhead, large signs, structures, constant speed for long stretches. Sealed cabin, the smell is trapped. I don't recommend driving with the window open, but noting that it reduces the sensation helps to understand the pattern. What weakens, removes. Direct sodium light, post, patio, motel. Spotlight following the side of the trailer. Breaking the environment, leaving one halo and falling into another. Avoiding long wells of darkness. How to register without hysteria. Receipts with time, departure and arrival. Continuous audio video, dashcam picks up timing. Photo of brand with scale, boot ruler. 911 case number, write it down on the pad. If any driver on 19 confirms, note the time and what he described. And what about the minor damage that many people ask to prove? Besides the 4 tracks in the dirt, I had a new superficial groove in the zip tie seal. It's not court evidence, but it wasn't there when I left the station. I always check because I've already picked up tampered cargo once. I took 2 photos, one on the lighted shoulder, the other in the yard. I don't have a definitive explanation. I have measurable repetition and third-party confirmation. And that in our lives carries more weight than any pretty story. Since that early morning, I've adjusted 3 habits. I route light as part of the route. Station, patio, motel with decent lighting. I don't stop in the dark when a repeating pattern appears. Sound, drop in rotation, smell, knocks. Logging in became a reflex. Time, approximate mileage, receipt, note in the notebook, and, if possible, call 911 early to generate a trail. If anyone has caught 3 clicks per mile with a fan falling and the smell of antifreeze, let me know. This isn't for documentary purposes, it's for us to compare notes. I'm Ben. I don't like drama. I like things that tick. And that early morning, outside the yellow bubble of light, something was ticking. I'm not superstitious. The road teaches you to appreciate what you can measure. Tire pressure, engine temperature, the time on the tachometer. The rest is just talk. At least it was. Until the night US 191 made me circle the same stretch as if someone were rewinding a tape. I left Rock Springs around midnight empty, heading north for a feed load. A crosswind, a clear sky, and a barely visible moon. The radio was muted and the engine revved just right. That rumble that puts you in the right place. I know 191. It's a route we take when we want to escape the tourist buses. Straight, dark, and unfussy. Everything was normal until mile marker 87. I had the stupid impulse to write down my fuel consumption every 10 miles on my notebook, just to see if the wind was stealing more than I felt. At mile marker 88, an owl crossed the headlight and disappeared. At mile marker 89, nothing. At mile marker 90, the first oddity, a deer crossing sign with an old sticker that said 1987 underneath. Who puts a year on a deer sign? He chuckled to himself. Bored hunter stuff. 10 minutes later, I began to feel the landmarks were getting too close. I checked the dashboard. The speed was steady. The GPS showed normal progress. Even so, 87 appeared again. I thought it was a duplicate sign. 191 has those things. They duplicate the sign, and then let the old one fall into the bushes. I followed. 88 appeared. Then 89. The owl flew by again. Same trajectory, same wing beat cutting through the light. Then the laughter stopped. I looked at my wristwatch. 0043. The dashboard clock. 0043. Tachograph, all the same. No one on the radio, I said out loud just to hear myself. Okay. Coincidence. When the 90 came around with the same 1987 plastered on the license plate, I leaned my elbow against the window and took a deep breath. It wasn't normal. I decided to do the test I learned from an old uncle. I changed a detail of the scene. I turned on the fog lights, something I hadn't done on the first pass. At 87, I threw a popsicle stick out the window. At 88, I flashed my high beams for 3 seconds. At 89, I turned on the radio. Anyone on 191 northbound copy me? Just static. At 90, I looked at the shoulder. No popsicle stick, just the sign with 1987. I followed once more. When the owl crossed, I gave a short honk. It turned its head the same way. On 87, the stick was in the middle of the lane, cold on my back. I hadn't passed it the previous lap, so where had it come from? I began to notice micro things that were too similar. A bent twig on the white line, a dark spot on the asphalt that looked like a map, the glow of a broken reflector blinking in time with my heart. I didn't slow down. Stubbornly. Instead, I decided to stop only when I saw people. That's when I saw the light of a small, homemade gas station on the right. 2 old diesel pumps, a soda fountain leaning against a wall, a half-baked, open sign. I'd never noticed the place before. I turned. The yard crunched under the wheels, dry gravel. Everything was so old it looked like a stage set. I climbed down carefully. The cold was biting. The soda machine had a faded blue stripe and, in the corner, the same 1987 sticker. Too much of a coincidence. I put in 4 coins. The can didn't fall out, it gave me back a coin. From 1987. I held it in my hand. I don't collect coins, but it held me for a few seconds. That's when I heard the crack. It wasn't an animal. It was the creak of my stirrup, as if someone had climbed up. I turned quickly. No one. The mirror shook slightly, not enough wind for it. The door glass fogged up from the inside out, and I was outside. I approached slowly, my hand on the iron of the door. There were fresh marks in the dust on the stirrup. 2. As if boots had climbed up, stopped there, and then nothing. I flung open the door, expecting to find a homeless person, a colleague, anyone. The booth was just as I'd left it, except for one detail. My notebook, the one where I recorded my fuel consumption, was open to the next page, and someone, not me, had written at the top, "Don't leave the track." I closed the door. I took a breath. I went back to the gas station. There was a bell on the door. I rang it. No one. Behind the counter, a small switched-off TV and a yellow calendar on the wall. The month? March 1987. I took 2 steps back alone, without thinking, like an animal. I ran to the truck, climbed in, and locked it. The engine started immediately as if it wanted to get out of there as much as I did. I returned to 191 and for the first time, did what I didn't want to. I slowed down. I went 35 km/h. If I was stuck in a loop, I was going to break gear. Radio on, interior light off, hand light on the wheel. When 87 appeared, I stopped before the sign. I got out with my turn signal on and walked toward it. At the base of the pole, half buried in the gravel, was my toothpick, the first one, filthy with dust. I picked it up. The wind suddenly stopped. Thick silence like a garage when the power goes out. "Okay, whoever you are," I said to the road. "I'll go to 86, then head back south." I got back on the bus, turned on my turn signal, and did as I promised. I drove slowly, aiming for 86 as if it were a harbor light. It came, beautiful, its large number reflecting. As I passed it, something in my chest loosened. The feeling of a tape rewinding stopped. The owl didn't come. The stain on the asphalt changed shape. The clock ticked down a minute. I didn't go into any other gas stations that night. I passed a patrol car almost at Farson and lightly slammed on the brakes just to catch the officer's eye. He gave me that look of someone checking out a drunk driver. I raised my hand and asked over the radio, "Officer, any unusual signaling between 86 and 90? He curtly replied, "No." He added, "Old gas station? There's one that's been abandoned since the 90s. They haven't turned on the lights since then." I didn't argue. That morning, at the freight yard, I took out the clipboard. The phrase, "Don't leave the runway," was still there. It wasn't my handwriting. I showed it to the dispatcher. He laughed. "Not much sleep, huh?" I put it away. I left the 1987 coin in the console for a while. Every time the sun shone, it shone in a way that gave me a headache. One day I threw it in the piggy bank at the tire shop and never went back to get it. Today, when someone says that Highway 191 is too straight to be scary, I just shrug. Fear doesn't come from curves. Fear comes from perfect repetition. 3 times in a row, the same owl, the same sign with the year, the same amount of time without moving. If I feel the road wants to play a game, I change a detail. I turn on a different headlight. I screech loudly. I stop before the marker. And I keep going. Because if there's a lesson from that night, it's simple. When the road wants to trap you, you disarm the noose by walking as if you were someone else. And no, I don't leave the road anymore. Good evening. I'm Nate, 38. I'm not one to tell stories, I'm one to deliver cargo and come home in one piece. I'm only recording this because I have audio, photos, a receipt, and a 911 number, and the nagging feeling that early morning someone, or something, used me as a metronome. It was 2023, a cold morning. Eastbound on a long stretch of interstate, open plains, 2 or 3 lost farms out there. The thermometer read 51 degrees, a light crosswind. I filled up before 1 a.m. And the receipt says $2.89 for coffee, and I wrote the time on the back, a habit after a robbery in 2016. The music was low, the cabin was clean, nothing wanting to become a story. The first signal was minor. When the mile marker passed my left mirror, the CB opened by itself for 2 seconds. A thin hiss, that familiar psst sound, and then closed. I thought I was grounded. At the next marker, the same thing. At the third, again. I slowed from 68 mph to 60, just to try to get some rest, but it wasn't time, it was position. The hiss started when the marker lined up with my door and disappeared 2 seconds later. I adjusted the squelch, touched the microphone connector, nothing. The trailer's amber ABS light flashed once, right next to the hiss. Next marker, it repeated. My mind was no longer on autopilot. Okay, back. Standard is serious business. I turned on my cell phone's voice recorder and started verbalizing the time to match it with the dash cam later. 123 license plate, 124 license plate. I switched to FM for a test. The music stuttered for the same 2 seconds as I crossed the next sign. My left ear gave a slight pop like barotrauma synchronized with the hiss. I really wanted it to be a silly electric one, but too many coincidences are getting old. I saw a wide service pull out and decided to stop to check the basics without becoming a target. I pulled the truck's brakes, turned on the low beams, and took a deep breath. The air smelled faintly of ozone, like an electric motor screaming for mercy. I got out with the flashlight, checked the wiring harness, plugs, and tires. And then it came. 3 sharp thuds on the side of the truck, knee-high, 1 second apart. Thud, thud, thud. Idiotic reflex. My foot slipped off the brake pedal for a moment. The truck advanced a foot on level ground before I slammed on the brake again. My heart raced. Shining the flashlight, I saw 3 clean coins in the aluminum dust, parallel, spaced a hand's breadth apart. I ran my finger over it. The dust parted and the metal shone. I took a photo with the flash. I told the time, 1:31 a.m. And I noticed a tiny dent, a 1-centimeter half moon, which I swear wasn't there the day before. I have photos of the exit patio, annoying habit. I walked back into the cab, sat down, brakes down. I dialed 911. Driver on an open stretch of interstate, radio interference pattern synchronized with mile marker, ABS flashing in unison, and 3 knocks on the bodywork when I stopped. I'll proceed to a bright light and wait. The operator asked for an approximate location, then reinforced, "Don't approach pedestrians, wait in a well-lit area." She gave me the incident number. I wrote it down on the back of the receipt. When I hung up, the CB opened again for 2 seconds, with no license plate nearby. The back of my neck tingled, I won't lie. I pulled slowly onto the road. A rule that didn't take long. Near bright light, those yellowish street lights that lead to parking lots and exits, the pressure in my ears eased and the hissing disappeared. In the dark, the pattern returned, perfectly. After a few markers, things escalated. The hissing began to intensify, arriving half a second before I lined up with the sign. It seemed the thing already knew where I was going. Just then I saw an old pickup truck cross me in the opposite direction, without headlights, just shadow and grille, and disappear in the rear-view mirror without a trace of dust or taillights. It could have been an illusion. I said this out loud into the recorder. I found a small courtyard with a bright sodium light and jammed the beast into the beam. Engine running, doors locked. I pulled up the dashcam app. 2S microcuts exactly when the license plate entered the frame. The recording clock didn't lose any time. Only the image ate 2 seconds and the audio continued, including my voice saying, "license plate," and the timestamp. This, along with CB and ABS, isn't common. I wanted a simple reason. It didn't come. The sheriff's patrol car pulled in slowly, blue lights flashing, no siren. The officer heard me without a frown, circled around with his flashlight, saw the 3 marks in the dust, and pulled out a piece of tape. Measurements, photo, notepad. He touched his finger to the dented crescent and asked when it appeared. I showed him the photo from the previous day on my cell phone. There was nothing there. He grunted a, "uh-huh." And then, as he spoke into the radio, his communicator gave a 2-second dry hiss out of nowhere. He stopped mid-sentence, looked at the roof of the patrol car, then at me. He checked his watch and said, without drama, "Registered." He asked for my documents, routine, and asked me to wait at the light for a few minutes while another unit swept the area. I agreed. There, at the light, it felt like I'd bought a few meters of peace. I kept an eye on the light. It blinked once and then stabilized. At the same moment the CB opened quickly and closed. A relapse, as if the pattern wanted to prove it was still there, but faint. Then silence. When they released me, I went to a nearby patio, bought another coffee, $1. 79, worse than the first, and tried to sleep. My body was scarred. I'd be tapping the steering wheel in 2 seconds flat. without even realizing it. I slept in pieces. In the sun, everything loses its teeth. I downloaded the files. Audio. My narration marks plate at the same time as the CB hiss. You can hear pops in the microphone when the ear clicks from barotrauma. Video. Micro cuts in the frames where the plates enter. Continuous clock. ABS. Log showing intermittency without associated braking in that window. Photo. The 3 coins cleaned of dust and the 1 scimitar dent. I emailed the 911 dispatcher asking for the call number. They responded with the standard note. Driver advised to wait in a well-lit area. Patrol no visual incidents in the area. It's cold. It's bureaucratic. And that's why it works. I returned 2 weeks later. Same time, same stretch. Everything was normal. CB muted, FM smooth, ABS well-behaved. As if the road had undergone some real-life maintenance while I wasn't looking. The only difference was a new mile marker, tied with wire, a few milestones away. It might have been nothing, but the dawn stuck with me for what it didn't have. A figure, a scream, a light in the sky. It had a pattern. And a pattern isn't something we just invent. It either works or it doesn't. I tried to be boring in the workshop. Electric using the parasitic antenna guardrail, but why exactly 2 seconds every time the plate aligns? And why the 3 beats only when I stopped? Wind hitting the plating? I've seen a trunk sing, but not 3 identical solid blows with an effect on the ABS. Prank? Middle of nowhere, dead time, tracks too clean for someone who could have run in the dark without leaving a trace. The smell of ozone comes with bad contact, okay? But added to the rest, it becomes a spare part. That afternoon, I showed the photo of the dent to the mechanic at the yard I trust. He turned his head, measured it with a ruler, and said, "If this were a static photo, I'd expect an irregular map. Here are 3 circles of the same size and a single dent. Someone touched it." Nothing was indented. He didn't laugh either. The next day I plugged the simple reader into the trailer's OBD to get a clearer report. At 1:31, there were 3 events on the ABS channel, spaced exactly 1/20 seconds apart. I compared them with the audio. Beat 1, beat 2, and beat 3 all fall on the same beat. My hand shook a little, not because it turned into a movie, but because when the number matches the ear, the excuse of imagination disappears. Since then, I've adjusted my procedure. It's not heroism, it's sanity. Did the radio set the pace to a mile marker? I verbalize the time. The voice anchors me and becomes simple proof. I don't stop in the dark out of curiosity. I enter the light, sodium pole, stop inside the beam, and then I get off. I call 911 and describe facts, not interpretations. Interference, ABS flashing, 3 knocks, photo, receipt. I keep cheap evidence, a scribbled receipt, a saved dashcam clip, a blurry photo. No one argues with a watch. I don't hunt. If I'm going to test something, there should be people nearby and an escape route. The road isn't a laboratory. Whether it was static, contact with a pole, video compression, or something else, I'm undecided. What I do know, that early morning, on a rural American road, there was something that goes for miles, knocks every 3 minutes and loses power at the light. And that, for a few minutes, pushed me out of my comfort zone. If you're driving at dawn and out of nowhere, your CB opens every single mark, your ears click in unison, and your ABS blinks on its own, do yourself a favor. Pull over at the light, check the time, call 911, and keep the receipt. If nothing happens,